Okay. All right. Hi. My name is Shiv Malik. And actually, I'm really incredibly psyched to be here at EthCC. I was here last year. I think I was here the year before. It gets more fun every time. And I love this building. Because it's really associated with mutuals. I think the Association of International Mutuals was sort of founded here in 1950. And that's actually related to the talk. So you'll see there's some congruence between what I'm talking about and then this building, which I presume was like done on purpose because Ethereum's a bit of a mutual. Yes, he's nodding. There we go. Okay. All right. So on that note, incidentally, I'm going to just change the title of the talk. Ta-da! It's a new talk. I'm going for how to monetize your data with a data union. I am going to talk about Swash. If anyone was waiting particularly to hear about Swash, you will hear about it. But really, I'm going to take a much higher level conceptual thing, do a much more higher level conceptual talk, because I had a bit more time. Just the kind of thing you're waiting for, huh? Yes? No? Okay. Right, so here's how I'm going to structure this talk. 1, who am I? 2, the state we're in now with the data economy. 3, why data ownership is, I'm going to argue, the only route out of all of this huge mess, this hell that we live in when it comes to the data economy. 4, why a data ownership future is an infrastructural nightmare. It really is. I've lived it. Those guys over there have lived it. It's hell. 5, how some clever people over there solved it. 6, I'm going to show you a demo, a working example of a data union with 1,000 members already. It's like almost the biggest app. I know that's a really low bar, but like that's cool. That's the Swash bit. 7, do people want to sell their data? Like, do they? We found out. They do. Oh shit, I just ruined that bit of the talk. 8, advantages of a data union. 9, where next? And then audience questions. But he'll probably cut me off audience questions, so I'm really sorry. Who am I? Right, okay. So, my name's Shiv Malik. I'm a former investigative journalist for The Guardian, of all things. Turned data or evangelist for a better data economy. This is me in 2012, and they invited me on the news because I deleted my Facebook account. Like back then, it was so rare that like you got on the news if you deleted your Facebook account, and I did it in protest because I was pissed off at Facebook's IPO. And I think what I said to the newsreaders, like, look, we're all info slaves, and this is disgusting, and I'm going to delete my account. And the newsreader, a guy called Krishna Guru Murphy, he's still on the host Channel 4 News back in the UK, he said, look, you've lost this. Like, you've lost. What are you talking about, Shiv? Hundreds of millions of people use Facebook. You've lost the argument on privacy. So I was like super disheartened by this, but I thought, look, if we are going to get back, the only way to get back is to fight tech with tech. Okay, so fast forward to 2017, and I joined a group of developers that made up the open source project called Streamer. We were here last year. Henry was talking, our founder. We've got a couple of talks tomorrow. And they ended up building some underlying tech or infrastructure as a sort of almost side project, which I think changes the data economy forever. And it was pretty mind-blowing. You're going to see that in a second. What they've done is to make a thing called a data union possible. I don't know if anyone knows Glenn Weil. He's pretty active on the Quadratic, yeah, guy nodding his head, good. And Jaron Lanier, who, if you haven't read his book, they work together on occasion. Actually, they work in Microsoft research together. But if you haven't read Jaron Lanier's book, Who Owns the Future, please do. It's brilliant and very inspiring and very poetic. If you can be poetic about tech, Jaron Lanier certainly is your man. And I think they had this vision of what they called a mediator of individual data, which is a mouthful, so no one uses that. But I think we do call them data unions. So they're sort of congruent. So if you know that idea of a mid, this is what it is. But what is it? Stop dancing around, Shiv. Tell them what it is. It's a way of crowdsourcing data and allowing people to work, in essence, as a collective to sell it. right? So it's a bit like a credit union in that sense. You crowdsource your assets to the benefits of the membership. So in the same way, a data union is a bit like that, right? And it's perhaps, I would say, the only way to enable individuals to own the most important asset, own and control the most important asset of the 21st century, and that is information. Okay, so the state we're in. You guys probably know all of this, so I'm going to skip over this bit somewhat hurriedly. Look, okay, so there's like 3 visions for a better data economy right out there at the moment. The first one is the open data idea, right? And that's put forward by the ODI, that's Tim Berners-Lee's think tank, which he started about 7 years ago. And the idea is this: it's like, look, all data should be open and unsiloed, and like companies and governments alike should be, you know, putting their data into data commons, and everyone can benefit, and everyone's happy and lovely, and everything's wonderful and fine. The second thing is, and most of you will belong to this group, right? The privacy, yes, the privacy or death. Hands up if you're privacy or death. 1 guy, 2, 3, yes. No, you don't believe in privacy? You're not privacy or death. Okay, you just don't want to die for it. Fine, okay. So that's the second vision, right? And the notion is obviously, look, we do in fact silo our data. We keep it away from everyone else, and we keep the stuff that personally identifies us to us, right? Usually are stored in our actual computer, not on a cloud system, for example. And it's had actually lots of successes. The ODI has had some successes. The open data movement has had successes with open banking. Privacy movement has had even more successes, in a sense, with the tech that they've created. Browsers such as, one could argue, Firefox, DuckDuckGo as a search engine, and then there's various encrypted apps. One could even put forward, I mean, status is obviously, there's 100 in the Ethereum community to go around for everyone, but also more mainstream, or massively more mainstream. You could say Telegram and WhatsApp belong in that bracket too. Let's not go in too deep on that one. And then the final one is like ownership model, right? The ownership model. And so what does it say? It says, okay, look, you know, if you want, the property paradigm is much better suited to getting at privacy. I'll elaborate that shortly. And openness, right? So if you can own, individuals can own and control the data that they create, they're much better enabled to, in a sense, stop it from being transferred. That's privacy, in a sense. Or trade it, right? That's openness. And so you're going to fulfill both those goals, right? And the notion of ownership that I certainly subscribe to is not like, here's a piece of wood, I sell you the wood, you take the wood, you build a house and whatever, right? And then I don't own that wood anymore. It's one of authorship, right? So I author this data, I license it to you, right? This stuff sounds desperately complicated, but it's really not. Happens with books. If you've ever written a book or a piece of creative content, you'll know that you can license that at will, and you still retain moral rights over these things, for example. So it's not just about selling it like that and it's gone forever, right? So there are complicated notions of ownership. It's not simply, as I say, I own it, now I don't. And the people backing it actually a weird group of people, right? So it's not organized, there's no think tanks, there's no big like tech output, as we'll see. Andrew Yang, he's now quit as potential Democratic presidential contender. But he was a big proponent of this. Yuval Hariri, will.i.am, the musician, and as I mentioned, Jaron Lanier, Glenn Weil fit into that taxonomy. So it's a disparate bunch of people. And as I said, worst of all, there's no implementations, right? It's a bunch of dead projects or sort of side scams that say, we'll give you control of your data, but there's nothing really there, right? What's that? Do you know what that is? Anyone know what that is? Yes, who said that? That guy. This guy's answering, he's like rocking it. Like, you guys, I need this guy as an audience. He's brilliant. It is the panopticon, right? Famously experiment by Jeremy Bentham, an English philosopher from the 19th century. Could be the 18th century, I forget now, oops. And he's like, here's how you design a prison, right? And it's also a really good metaphor for the data economy, right? So you have a world of data oligarchs and data serfs, right? The data oligarchs sit in the middle. Who uses the internet? Who uses the internet in this room? Everyone should have their hands up. Oh, good, see? Everyone put their hands up, good. Okay, well, that's you. Oh my God, I screwed up the U. How did that happen? PowerPoint. Damn it. You guys already know this, so I'm going to skip over this. But like, you know, the government, NSA, Snowden revelations, I was in The Guardian at the time when they revealed that. And it was an amazing story, which I think we're still living with the repercussions today. We know that the government is also a major stakeholder in this setup above. So you can't really trust the state or big tech. And obviously then we have, in this model, huge issues of equity in terms of wealth distribution, the impacts on privacy, innovation, and economics more generally. So this sucks. This is a panopticon hell that we live in, right? Okay, part 3, data ownership, right? Better than open or private. Okay, so given where we are, I think it's safe to argue that the open data and privacy visions have failed. They've failed. They've just strategically they have failed. And the results, in a sense, should speak for themselves. But let me elaborate on why I think they failed. Okay, the open data movement. Its central demand, right, is that the state enact laws to get data, like the data giants, data behemoths, to like give up their private property, right? Share it, just share it with everyone else for free. But they're kind of, as I mentioned before, they're failing to recognize that like the state and big tech are on the same side. They're completely aligned. They're not opposed. So you're not really going to get that regulation, and like you don't expect the kind of NSA or the government to say, yeah, sure, like we'll get the people that we use to collect our information to also share it with everyone else, because then they lose power. Now, you don't have to believe in that argument. Fine. You can go to the next argument, which is to say, okay, fine, the government does step in and say, like, we'll regulate big tech, but they can't even get them to pay tax, right? We'll regulate big tech to open up their data and the open data movement, but they can't even get them to pay tax, right? Why? Because big tech's really very powerful at lobbying. And we know this time and time again, and we don't really want to be disappointed by it anymore. So I think it's just a giant failure. It also ensures the whole open data movement is set up to ensure that power remains between either government or big tech, and it stays up there at the top in a very small group of people. And that isn't sustainable. And in fact, notably, Tim Berners-Lee, who set up the ODI, has himself given up on the vision and started something else around data ownership called Solid. Privacy. Sorry, guys. Privacy's dead. The privacy movement has failed. That's what I'd like to argue right now. I'm a privacy warrior, right? You're a privacy warrior. We're in this together. But I think you have to make this argument, right? At this point in time, we're losing souls all the time. Every single day, right? What is that? That's the Amazon speaker. That's far out-trumped anything that's been built in this community and will continue to do so. In fact, people are paying Jeff Bezos. They're paying Jeff, please spy on me. Please spy on me. They know that they're being spied on, but they want to be spied on, it seems, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. And the reason for that is the cognitive load, like, of enacting real privacy, right? Real privacy, not just using like the one app at a time. Like, you know how deep this goes, right? You move anywhere. Like, you own your car in 3 years' time. It'll tell the car owner everything about you, right? There was a guy who was a murderer caught, good thing, because he destroyed the car, but the onboard computer survived, and it could tell the police everything about which door had been opened exactly when and where and how and exactly, that's happening all the time, right? So you can't just use the one app and say, oh, now it's all fine, I use status, like it's cool. No, that doesn't give you privacy, right? Your app might be successful, but that's not fulfilling the bigger picture. So the cognitive overload of trying to live in that privacy world is, when set against the constant temptation of convenience, is a battle that's just been lost and will keep getting lost time and time again. Like convenience, and by convenience I mean like, I need to walk into a shop and buy some stuff, right? Oh God, I have to give them all my previous financial history, basically, right? How can I escape that? Okay. So the aims are right, but the strategy has failed. Okay, so what does data ownership offer? One, it's a better meme, right? It's a really better meme. Like, it's a great meme. People get it, right? People get it from when they're like 2. Like that expression, taking candy from a baby. It's really hard to take candy from a baby, right? Why? Because toddlers understand property rights. They're like, no, this is my candy, get off. So people really understand it as a meme. It's very simple. It's imbued right from the beginning. So that's good. 2, better distribution of power, right? Unlike, in a sense, the open data movement, the ideals of that, the notion of ownership, right, situates it at the individual level, right? Not at the governmental level. We are not asking other people to do things for us. We're saying, this is mine, I own it, it sits with me, and I'm the agent involved in this process. And that's why, really, I'm attracted to it, and why everyone else in this room should be attracted to it. 3, distribution of wealth, right? Privacy doesn't give you wealth, doesn't take the wealth away in many senses from much larger companies. Nor does the open data movement. But owning your data and therefore being able to lease it, license it, sell it, that starts to affect the data economy in a much larger way. And actually 4, I would argue that it gives a much, much better defense against privacy intrusion. Why is that? Well, maybe it's not so obvious, but privacy is being trammeled not because people are giving up on privacy, right? Not because people are giving up on privacy, but because giant companies are taking people's data. So privacy, it's just like, it's really that simple, okay? I'll just repeat it again. Privacy is being trammeled not because people are giving up on privacy, but because giant companies are taking the information. So the obvious response is, well, actually, but not the way we've gone to. We kind of blame the victim a bit in many senses. I've just done it just now in this talk. How can we better stop companies from taking this information? And the current privacy argument is drawn around our kind of human rights frame, right? You're like, hey, look, I have an inalienable right to privacy. Well, here's a much better way. It's my property and you can't take it, right? And that's why this picture is up there. That's one of the oldest cases in English law was a guy called Entek. Versus Carrington. The king's messengers basically came along and took this guy's papers. And he says, you're a propagandist, we don't like you, we're going to take your stuff. And the court said, no, hang on, you can't just go into someone's house and take people's stuff. Why? Not because you have an inalienable right to human rights and let's look at the human rights framework for all of this. No, and actually those thoughts were around at the time, so it's not inconceivable that was the case. They said, no, it's your stuff. It's just your stuff. And the king, we don't care who the king is, unless he's got an actual law saying you can take people's stuff, you can't take your stuff, right? It's very simple. Can't come into my house, because I own it. Can't come into my land without a warrant, because it's mine. Can't take my data without my permission, because it's mine, right? I think that's a lot stronger argument in law. As well as a meme, than the current privacy framework. Okay, there's a problem though, which is that thing about that tech output, right? Not much tech output on the data ownership front, right? Why? Turns out it's a nightmare to build the infrastructure necessary. Okay, I'm going to tell you another story. This is document written by a guy called Chris Downs. Chris Downs was an English guy who in 2000 became the first person to sell their data on the internet, the World Wide Web. I say download, because I actually had to handwrite most of this information. Because it came from various websites, so obviously Facebook wasn't around then, and I think he went to the Experian of the day, maybe it was Experian, and he kind of wrote stuff down and went to his bank and said, can I have this information? And then he put it all in a thumb drive, and where did he sell it? He sold it on eBay, because that was the only place to sell it, and do you know how much he got for it? Jonathan, you came to my talk. You should remember. He got $200 for it. Actually, $360, I think I worked out in like today's prices. That's not bad, right? It's not bad. But as Chris Downs said in a piece in 2017, like we're still stuck in this thing, right? When it comes to like individuals owning their data and somehow selling it, like licensing it, we're still stuck with this same shitty infrastructure, right? Like I go around to all the websites, I download it, I put it on a zip drive, and I stick it on eBay. Like what else are you going to do, right? So let's break down the elements and kind of what's needed on this infrastructure backend. One, transport, right? You need a way of moving and pushing the data from one place to another. I'm just going to leave that there because I think that's fairly obvious, right? You need a back-end network for doing that. People have AWS as a solution at the moment. Like, what do individuals have that they can easily use and easily utilize, or developers could easily utilize on their behalf, right? Especially one that's decentralized, not much going on that front. Two, discovery. They need a place. Buyers, data buyers. Like, none of this works unless people actually want to buy the data from you, right? Otherwise, you're just like, put it out in the world. That's a bit rubbish. What's my incentive? So you need buyers to like be able to come and buy the data, and they're not going to negotiate with like 1 million Chris Downses on eBay, are they? So you need a marketplace. And you need a way of aggregating all that data into single data products, right? So it's 2 bits there. You need to be able to discover it on a marketplace and a way to like purchase it in a sense and find it, but also it needs to be aggregated. And then the last bit is the payment, right? And that isn't easy. You're like, hey, Shiv, we've got Ethereum, we've got like regular money if you really want to use that. What's the issue here? Well, if you like a data buyer comes along and spends $10,000 on a data product, but there's 1 million members of that union, well, then everyone's going to get, what, 10 cents each? And you know how this works, right? It doesn't work at all. Even with Ethereum, it won't work. It won't scale. So we built, wow, I'm giving it away. So you need a micropayments solution as well, right? Okay. So backend network, marketplace, payments, micropayment solution. Okay. Hi, Jonathan, you also. Those guys over there, they solved it. And a few other people. So weirdly, we had this in our like white paper. We didn't intend to build data unions, but we had these bits in our white paper. One was to build a decentralized, peer-to-peer, encrypted, a real-time data delivery network, right? That was cool, so that was already there. The marketplace was already built as well, and already had experience with Ethereum somewhat and crypto economics. We obviously created our own token for funding ourselves in 2017, so an ECR20 token. So we had some experience, therefore, with crypto and Ethereum. And we brought all those things together in what we've called a data unions framework for developers. The last bit on micropayments was a solution that we call Monoplasma, which actually Henry was here at EthCC last year talking about it and actually launching it there. So this is a year on. Here, I'm going to give you a quick back-end. I'm not a developer, as you've probably already realized. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the back-end, but embarrassingly non-technical. Okay, so how it works. Data source comes in, goes through the back-end network, right? Travels to the buyer through a series of nodes when the buyer unlocks it. And only when the buyer unlocks it does that data then flow to the buyer. The payment is served by a smart contract and goes back to the source. So everyone's happy. All right, so that's the basic framework that's going on in the back end. And that's the framework for data unions should be built, should be out in a few months' time. So a team has been building a data union for the last year. It's called Swash. And it's really the first data union in the world. There are actually more coming along. They're not part of Streamer. It's actually based out of Turkey. And they saw what we were doing about a year ago, and they thought, yeah, hell, this is cool. We can make some money out of it. We like your ideals. We like what you're doing. So we're going to start building. So what is Swash? Well, it's just a browser plugin for Chrome, Firefox, Edge. Anyone use Edge? No? Who would use Edge? I don't know. Embarrassingly, I did that at a conference not so long ago, and someone from Microsoft was like, yeah, I use Edge. It's like, oh no, that's sad for you. So users send their data direct to the network, right? From their browser plugin, direct to the network, through the network to the buyer. And when the buyer purchases that, then that smart contract then distributes the money out both to the users, but then also to Swash. And Swash is allowed to take, according to the smart contract, up to 30% at this moment. Yeah. Users like, yeah, maybe more. Give me some certainty. No. It's 30 sounds good to you, so okay, all right. It's a bit more precise than that, hopefully. I mean, it's functioning right now. So that's how these guys, Swash, generate revenue. So that gives them the incentive to say, okay, look, well, we could be selling millions of people's personal data if they want to get in on this because they want to get paid. Great, all right. We'll build an app that allows us to deliver that data. We're going to see that in a second. And we can get paid for that too, right? So it's a nice, what is this, like a cooperative, right? It's a kind of data cooperative in many senses, right, with those constituent elements there. Okay, look, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm supposed to be showing you now a demo, but it's going to have to be, I don't have MetaMask on this thing, that's why I wanted to use my computer. So I'm not going to be able to show you the whole thing, but I will be able to show you the browser plugin very quickly. Okay, how do I now get out of this? Can you give me a hand? This is going to be so immortalized on that live stream. It's going to be awful. Like, this is where Shiv's completely effed up. Thank you. Can I use this mic as well? Can you tell the sound guy that I want to use the podium mic? He's not going to see. Hello? Can you just go down there afterwards? That's fine. I've got it.
You got it?
I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Oh, it's not up there. Okay. Oh my God, this could turn out to be far too difficult. So look, this is why people rehearse, right? I'm sorry. Okay, leave it. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to demo Swash. Can we go back to the slides? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Which is a real shame. Rats. Can you ask the guy to put the podium mic on? Is that all right? We can do this. Okay. But I can't see the...
You can see what?
Oh, I have to just do it like this? Oh my God, that's...
Just I can do that. I just don't know how.
Oh God. The keyboard's in French. This is terrible. Okay, it's fine. It's going to be the worst demo ever. Can we tell you what? Just go back to the slides, and we'll just leave it at that. Don't worry. Okay, look. Can I recommend that you all go to swashapp.io? It's a browser plugin, as I mentioned, and it's beautiful. They've really thought about privacy and how you can enact your privacy whilst also having the potential to monetize that data. So they've got a number of really interesting features, like a data delay module. So like you can see what's being sent and what's about to be sent, and you can say, you know what, I want to delay that more, or I just want to delete those data items. But the keyboard's still in French. No, okay, that's just rude. Okay, here it is. Let's get... Add to Firefox. Okay, so you can see this is just like a really...
Yeah.
It doesn't... Okay. Ta-ta-ta.
below. I got it.
Yes, sweet. Is that okay? Yes, great. Okay, look, there we go. We've installed it. Oh, this is fun. So this is the data. Data is the token that Streamer created back in 2017. So that's what you get paid in. I'm going to run over this really quickly. How long have I got? How long have I got?
0.
0 minutes?
Yeah.
No, I had an hour. Surely I haven't already spoken for an hour.
I don't know.
Okay. If you open up the options, you can see here. Oh my God. Here, so when you open up, you can toggle on a few options here, right? About what you actually want to share with this data union. So do you want to share your Twitter data, your surfing data, your Facebook? And you can, when you open up the Facebook example, for example, you can then drill down on more particular options, right? So this is like the permissioning element about like what do you really want to share with this data union? What are you comfortable with, in a sense, monetizing? I want to show you the surfing example shortly. So it goes to, visited pages, the visiting graph, create bookmark, let's leave that off, let's say I'm not comfortable with that, etc., right? Then it also has a privacy slider, which is really nice, right? So at the lowest level, you're really giving away everything, then you turn it to medium, or let's just go straight to high. You can see so much more is masked, including the time string, which just tells you the year that it's created, not even the month of the day. And the time is masked itself again, and the URL root is kept, but nothing else, right? Here's that data delay module that I was mentioning. So let's just set it to 4 minutes, right? And go here and perform a search, right? On data unions. Okay, let's see what comes up for there. We can see all the results are up here, right? What does that data now look like? Well, it's generating 3 data points out of that. Okay, let's scroll down, and you can see all of the links that were returned after that search and their ranking, and this is obviously all machine readable. So this is interesting because this is now going obviously to the data union. Now we've got 1,000 members. What I really wanted to show you at this point was how this data looks an aggregate. But I can't do that because this doesn't have MetaMask installed. But I can show you this, which is marketplace. Ooh. Came up already. Okay. So look, this is from the data buyer side. This is what it looks like. So you go to our marketplace and you type in Swash to find as a product. You click on it and you sign in with Ethereum, right? So if you have a MetaMask account, you can also sign in by email, but you sign in with Ethereum, it's a lot easier. And you'd purchase it using data tokens. And this is the sign-in process that we won't go into. But once you purchase it from there, then you can see the output of 1,000 people. And it's quite remarkable. You really get an instinct for kind of like what people coming together means when it comes to monetizing data. All right. That was a very, very quick overview of all of that. Let's somehow go on. Can you put it back into play function? Thank you. So I'm going to take you very briefly now through the rest of those brief arguments and the conclusions that come out of all of this. My God, this is way complicated. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. So look, we did some research because we wanted to know, look, do people actually really want to sell their data, right? Because if they don't want to sell their data, then all of this was a giant waste of time. One, it turns out they do. And this really, obviously, that made us really happy. We hadn't wasted our time. Amazing. One, money moves people. People actually really like getting money for stuff, it turns out. Oh, surprise, surprise. But also for their data. So that's cool. But as long as you don't do it in a scammy way, which is you don't try and kind of create air miles, basically, out of this. So you need a tradable token, and people can get, and they're comfortable with crypto. This is a really good finding for the crypto community in that sense, right? People are, in fact, like millennials and younger, are very comfortable with crypto. They're like, yeah, we get it. Like, even if they don't know what a blockchain is, even if they haven't handled crypto before, they're like, yeah, we get it. That's cool, right? As long as they can trade it, though. It's like, it's not locked in. So that's cool. That's the first thing. The second thing is, yes, people are willing to sell different types of data. They're less comfortable with financial data. They're more comfortable with, say, music streaming data, right? So there are degrees on the scale. Three, and this is, by the way, product research that we did with 20 people, so it was qualitative rather than quantitative, down in Brighton about 3 months ago. We got a firm to do it, so they really looked at it, what they were doing independently of us. Three, if they like the concept of a data union, they love the reality. So when they get their hands on Swash, 7 out of 10 people go from, I really like this idea, to, oh my God, this is amazing. Why do they do that? Because they get control, right? They get a sense of control. They want platforms to give them a sense of control. In fact, when people say that they don't care about privacy, that's actually not true at all. They really care about privacy. It's all a defense mechanism. They tell you they don't care, but they're lying because they don't want to face the reality that they don't have any sense of control, right? They don't actually have any control. They have no way of enforcing that. So they just go, you know what? I don't care. But they care deeply. And as soon as you give them a sense of control, then they love you for it. They love you for it. They love the platform. They love the software. And they want more. That's cool. That's all good. That works certainly in our favor. OK, more advantages. I'm just going to skip over this very briefly, but this is really interesting. Firstly, data sets are demonopolized. Once you start to take, let's say, location data, and you create data sets that can output location data, what are you going to do, right? What's Google going to do? This is great. Right? Because what do they do right now when someone comes along and builds an app that has location data, right? Like a map app, what do? They just buy it up, right? Like they did with Waze, right? Or you find it really impossible to compete. Well, if you just had the data set that you could just buy in of like 10 million people's location, because all those people were willing to sell it as part of a data union, then you can just create an app on top, right? And it's easy as. And suddenly you can compete with Google. And what, Google's going to knock all these people down? I don't think so. It's a lot harder now, right? And new business models can be created. We've already done this, like WWF needed data from fishermen, right? Really poor artisan fishermen, and they're the ones who fish the tuna out of the sea in the Philippines. How do you get data from them, right? Why would they care about your data collection? They don't care about it, but if you give them some money in a data union, suddenly they're like, yeah, okay, this is worthwhile, I'll do it. And that's what they're doing. So you can imagine like another 100 ideas like this, right? Okay. Where next for data unions? Now that I've got you to care about data unions. Okay, very quickly. How much is Swash's data worth, right, per year? Like that stuff that I just showed you, how much is it worth if you can scale it? Anyone have a guess in revenues per year? You don't know? Yeah, 30 million, roughly. 30 million in revenues a year. Right? That's more than anyone else is making in revenues, because no one makes revenues, really. But that's a ton of money, right? Already. And that's just one idea. It's just one idea. And this is one valuation. It's actually, if you can really scale it, it's worth double that, and maybe double again. Because no one else has that data. That's why. No one else can get that kind of, that granularity on the data without asking for users' permission. And no one has found a way of doing that up front, and making it a trade and making it acceptable to users, right? Can it scale its user base? Yeah, we think so. I think next time I come here next year, this will be the biggest app. Swash, and I'm not part of the Swash team, so I can't vouch for them. But I think by far it'll be the biggest app going. Because the proposition's really simple. We'll give you crypto, right? We'll give you crypto, rather than you have to KYC to get it yourself, in some sense. Or use our service using crypto, which is always a barrier. Okay. More data unions are coming, including data union DAOs. We've already got that going. That's fun. And lastly, the legislative winds are favorable, very favorable towards data unions. GDPR has Article 20 in it, which is about portability. So we can just take Netflix's data. That's where we're going next, right? Take Netflix's data. They don't sell it to anyone else. Well, hell, if we all generate it, why not take it? Why not take Spotify's data, right? Why not take Facebook's data? It's all there, right? If you just work with users in this way. CCPA, which is the new Californian GDPR, it's not really, but it actually has even more powerful elements in that. So you can tell companies now to stop selling your data, right? So imagine a data union that sends an automated email saying, stop selling my data, but also we want it, right? So we can take it and you can't sell it either. Hey, now data unions have a monopoly on data sets. That's cool. That completely changes everything, right? We didn't ask for this legislation. It's there already, right? We are asking for it now. Okay, that's it. Questions? Do you have any questions? Am I allowed questions? How long have I got? What's the time?
0. Yeah, I mean, you can like just have question here, and
I can do.
we just invite the next speaker and have questions.
Does anyone have any deliberate question they want to ask right now? No, you're like, get off, Shiv. All right, look, thank you very much for that. I enjoyed it. I'm sorry about the technical glitches, but I hope that was somewhat stimulating. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Don't forget the key.
Oh, is that you?
No.
Your flash drive? Your phone?
Yes, that side is, yeah.
Key. We say key in French, that's one.
No, no,